Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in my series of legendary live albums. These are live albums that capture all the energy and excitement of a band in a live setting. And I can't think of an album that description does not fit better with than The Who's Live at Leeds, released in 1970. This is a perfect example of a live record really just harnessing and capturing all the excitement and energy that was a Who live performance at this time. You can hear the amps crackling. You can hear Pete Townshend's arms swinging around. I mean, it is... And Keith Moon's wild, crazy drumming, John Entwistle's active bass playing, and Roger Daltrey's singing. Man, it's just there, and you can just feel the energy. So The Who, this was recorded after they had their studio album Tommy, and they of course toured for that record, and they wanted to release a live record. They felt like some of the shows they had recorded, they didn't like it, so they decided to do two shows, and that they would go then and with the intent of recording a live record. And one of them was at the University of Leeds, and they landed up not putting any songs from Tommy on here. They just went with, they wanted to go with supposedly they kind of felt like Tommy was put out there by their management as like an art rock kind of album, and they wanted to put this out and really put out kind of a raw live album showing that their strength was still as a great live high energy band. And I think that this album really does this, because it just feels like, man, you can feel the volume coming off the stage. This is what I love about stuff from this era. This is before guitar players had all kinds of effects pedals and distortion pedals and all this other stuff. They got their sounds strictly from just cranking their amplifiers up, and that's the way, like, Pete Townshend's guitar on this, man, it just sounds like a really loud amplifier, you know, pushed to its limits. John Entwistle's aggressive bass playing, it's the same way. It's sort of distorted, and it's just got that really loud amp sound. Keith Moon bashing away in the back. I always thought that the Who were an interesting band because Keith Moon is a very active drummer. He's a very over-the-top drummer, just sort of bursting at the seams with energy, like constant fills and, you know, just manic excitement behind the drum kit. And John Entwistle is a very busy bass player, almost like a lead bass player or a second guitar in some ways. He fills up a lot of space, plays a lot of notes. So in situations like that, somebody's got to sort of be more of the anchor in the rhythm, and I think that that's Pete Townshend. You know, Pete Townshend has this really kind of great. Maybe I've heard AC/DC cite the Who as an influence, and I can sort of hear that because Pete Townshend has that great kind of open chords and just really strong rhythm playing, and not that he doesn't play any leads. He does play some leads, but he's certainly not a lead player in the way of like a Jimmy Page or Eric Clapton, where they're doing these big long extended guitar solo things. He plays a lot of rhythm parts, and even when he does play leads, they tend to have a real rhythmic kind of aggressive feel to it. So what's also interesting is that there's only 6 songs on the album, and this is on the vinyl version of this. There's a remastered version of this that includes a whole bunch of other songs that were recorded at this show. And if you see the set list for this show, it's like 32 songs or something. A lot of songs from Tommy, so there's a lot of short little things in there, but still, they put on a really long show here, and they sort of whittled it down to these 6 songs. And it's kind of interesting because 3 of the songs are cover songs. So I guess they just kind of wanted to show, they didn't want to put out an album, I guess, with a whole bunch of, quote, sort of radio or hit songs on it. They wanted to go a different route. And I believe it worked for them, because this album is often on people's lists as one of the greatest live albums of all time here. And really, I think it's because of just capturing the energy of the band and the excitement of the band here. It's done really well. The recording quality is really kind of simple. It just sounds like microphones in front of the amps, a microphone or a couple of microphones around the drums. It's raw, but not in a distracting way by any means. It just sort of seems to just add sort of to the live kinetic energy of the whole thing. The crowd is a little bit kind of far away. Sounds like they didn't have a microphone out in the crowd, but that's all right. Again, it sounds like just a really excellent like soundboard bootleg, or just a really great document of just where the band was at this time in a live setting. So the album starts with one of the covers, Young Man Blues, which has Daltrey singing like a line by himself, now yo young man, like a bluesy type thing, and and then the band doing hits behind him, and then the band coming in, real aggressively. And this one stretches out, and it's got, again, that great amplifier sound where when Townsend hits like these single notes, it reminds me of like Hendrix. It sounds like the guitar is just gonna explode, getting that sound from just cranking up the amplifiers. Next, Substitute, which was up to that point, a single for the band. It was probably the most, popular song for them at that time. The big, only like sort of hit single, sort of. And that's really cool. That one's, kind of straight along like the original, but it's got a lot of energy to it. Next is Summertime Blues, which is another cover song, and this is really neat. You hear this on the radio sometimes. It's got, the guitar sounds great in this. I love John Entwistle doing sort of that low voice, want to help you, son, but you're too young to vote, man. Just, again, exploding, guitar amps and this whole thing, and the bass, driving really hard. Keith Moon just like going absolutely bananas in the background. Shakin' All Over is another cover, and this is kind of cool because it's like a blues tune. But I love the way it sort of stops, and Roger Daltrey takes it out of time there and goes like, shaking all over. And then the band, kicks back in, and they stretch out a little bit on this one too. And then on side 2 of the record is really where they stretch out here. My Generation, which I guess was, another hit for them, along the lines of Substitute. And this they really stretch out on. This goes for like about 14-15 minutes or so, and it starts off with the song that everybody's heard. This song, I love the awesome bass fills in it. John Entwistle, his bass sounds just great on this. It just sounds like a cranked amplifier, and I love these quick bass fills that he does really for his time at that time. Man, I don't know if there were any other bass players playing as fast as he was. This was some real technical bass playing stuff, and he had a way of playing with his right hand, boom, boom, where he could play these like really sort of quick notes and everything. And then so they play the song, and then the song they just start jamming, and they make they play little bits of some other songs. They play See Me, Feel Me for like 15-20 seconds. They play Sparks, a little kind of quote from those from the Tommy album, and then it's just them sort of riffing, and the bass going crazy, the drums going crazy, but it's really, really cool, man. Again, this is one especially where it just feels like you're sitting right in the front row and the amplifiers are blowing your hair back. And then the album ends with Magic Bus. It starts off really neat, just with like claves there, and Pete Townsend comes in kind of playing this funky funky riff, and the song jams for a little bit. It gets a little sort of loose. I don't know if if maybe my only complaint is this one. It ends a little it feels a little anticlimactic for me. I might have put My Generation last or something a little bit more upbeat or something. It just seems to it gets a little lost at some point in this one, but it's still pretty cool. I like the funky beats. I love Pete Townshend's background vocals. He has such a immediately identifiable voice. You can pick out his voice, his background vocals in all these songs. And Roger Daltrey sounds great on all this. I'd say like Substitute and Summertime Blues, Shakin' All Over. He really sounds really great on those. So there you go. Just a really cool, legendary live album. And this was apparently, I was surprised when I read this, the only live album that they released of this, the classic lineup of the band. Keith Moon, rest in peace. John Entwistle has also passed, rest in peace. Pete Townshend and Roger Daltrey. So this is the only live document of them. And 1970, this is really, a really great sounding recording for that time. Great energy and electricity sort of coming out of the grooves on this one. So there you go. Just a great live document of a band really, maybe coming to their peak right around this time with Tommy and really riding at the top of the wave there for The Who. So, all right, so there you go. Legendary live album, The Who, live at Leeds. Let me know in the comments what you think of this record. It really reminds me of like how people used to make live albums back then. This does not sound like it was doctored at all in the studio. Back then, it was really about capturing the band live. And I think as time went on, when live albums became a really big seller, people became a little more self-conscious and like, all right, we got to fix these things and redo this and redo that. But this is just a great example of just, man, hit record and let the band play. And when you're a great live band like this, it really comes across and comes jumping out of the grooves on the records. So let me know what you think in the comments of this record. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.